Alrighty, hi kids again. Time for another episode of Upstate Rider. I gotta do this in the wintertime because it's just too cold out and there's too much snow on the ground and you can't ride, so I might as well talk to you some way or the other. So we're leaving work. We're heading home. It is now 8 degrees outside with a wind chill of, I believe, -10 when the wind is blowing, but I haven't seen too much wind, so that might not be too bad. So I had some thoughts I wanted to talk to you about today. I wanted to kind of tell you a little story about some of you know, many do not, that I am an alcoholic. I have been for about 20 years. I recently quit in 2019 and kind of had to because I almost died. I was drinking both scotch and gin on a regular basis, daily, especially when I got home from work. I would sit in a chair, watch TV, drink, eat dinner, drink, till I went to bed, till I passed out in a chair. And up until about the end of October of 2019, I was still drinking pretty heavily. But then my stepdaughter got married one weekend, and that weekend I was looking rather peaked and yellow, and went about my day and did the usual stuff, had a nice time. And then the following Monday, I got up and went to work. I started feeling really, really nauseous. And about, I don't know, 8 o'clock in the morning or so, I started throwing up blood. And I said, well, this can't be a good sign. And I also felt like I was going to pass out. I called a friend, and she came and got me and brought me to the hospital. And just before I got to the hospital, I did pass out. And they took me to the emergency room and got me right in because I couldn't stop throwing up the blood. So they got me inside, and come to find out I was bleeding from my esophagus. And it wasn't fun. It was slightly painful, and not a good thing. So they admitted me and gave me, I guess, what they considered a emergency endoscopy, where they go in and they tie off the bleeding polyps that are inside your esophagus. And so I ended up staying there for a couple of days just for observation, but at the same time, I was unconscious for most of it. And my girlfriend at the time, or fiance I should say at the time, was asked, what, since I was unconscious, what they should do with me and whatnot. Well, then a couple of days later, what ended up happening was about, I don't know, maybe started puking up blood again. So my father-in-law, or to-be father-in-law at the time, came and got me, brought me to the hospital, brought me to the emergency room. I was still, and I couldn't stop throwing up. I just couldn't stop, and it was all blood. And I just couldn't stop. And eventually I just passed out. And I guess I was out cold pretty good, because the next thing I know, I'm at Albany Medical Center. And I got a breathing tube down my neck. I got an EKG hooked up. I got my hands taped up. I'm strapped to the bed. I wake up and I have no idea where I'm at. None. No clue whatsoever. And I can't talk with the breathing tube sticking in my mouth. I tried to write it down, but that was a failure. Fiance showed up and she was in absolute tears. And I ended up falling back to sleep again and was unconscious for several days. And I still couldn't talk, I still couldn't write. I wanted to know where I was and why I was there. And come to find out, apparently everything that was wrong with me at the time was much worse. I had blown out a third of my liver. They ended up putting a stent in it. And then I was back to the hospital for observation before they sent me back to Glens Falls Hospital, which is where I started at. And the whole time between the first time I went in for the endoscopy to the time I ended up at Albany Med, I had not drank anything. I didn't know really what was going on. And I'm pretty sure I came close to death, because I remember at one point seeing our Heavenly Father and Him telling me that it wasn't my time. So I accepted that. I'm already a Christian, man. But that kind of hit home. Oh, needless to say, I spent a few more days in the hospital. They weren't going to take the breathing tube out until I could stay awake long enough. And I kept falling back to sleep. I was having a hard time staying awake. So I ended up coming back home. And after a couple weeks, I felt much better. I could barely walk. I had a real hard time with walking and moving around and stuff like that. But eventually it got better and better and better. I am glad I'm alive today. And I haven't touched a drop since my daughter-in-law's wedding. I've been clean for 2 years now, a little over 2 years. And believe it or not, I didn't have any help. I didn't go to AA. I didn't go to any kind of, well, I started to go to counseling, but it was nothing but a ripoff. As a matter of fact, I'm still paying for it now, because they kept hitting me up with these bills. And at the time I had told them to stop because I couldn't afford to keep paying for this. They keep wanting to piss test me. And but I had to pay for it every time. I'm like, no, I'm not. This is ridiculous. I'm not drinking. I'm not. I know who I am. I'm not trying to snooker anybody. I'm not trying to bypass the system or whatever you want to call it. I know what I need to do for me to keep alive. So I just stayed right off of it. I realized that I was spending several $100s less a week on alcohol. And I thought to myself, you know what? It's time to buy yourself a motorcycle. So I went to the dealership and I took a look around, and they had a 2016 Street Bob, all done up just like I liked it. Had the forward controls on it, Vance and Hines exhaust, had the stock handlebars on it, but that's a different story. I said, you know what, the money I could be spending on booze, I'd rather be spending on a motorcycle. So I talked to the dealer, and she says, well, I got one other guy looking at it. But she says, if you can get your paperwork together by Tuesday, and you're all set to go and you got financing, then it's yours. I said, okay, great. Oh, the bike only had 5,000 miles on it too. I was like, it was like brand new. It might as well have been brand new, because it was just beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's a matte black. And I'll show you a picture of it. Oh, by the way, if you like what I'm talking about, and if you like watching, do me a favor and subscribe. Maybe even hit that like button if you like what I'm talking about. So that's how I got involved with Harley Davidson. I've been a Harley Davidson fan my whole life. Always wanted one. Been wanting one for years. Just could never afford to get one. And then I was able to finally afford to get one. And it was great. It's been great. I've been racking up the miles on it. I take it out all the time, every chance I get. I've done some moto camping, some long rides, some short rides. I'm hoping to do some moto camping this year, so I could take you along with me and you can see where I go and how it's all done. But can't do much in the wintertime. So for right now, I guess I'll just talk to you. I appreciate you watching. Thank you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and have yourselves a great day.